Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It's a show that's filled with heart, incredible music, animation, and somehow has a satisfying character arc for every single character. Now that we're in this trend of 2D animated projects being remade for live action, Avatar's kind of the perfect show to do a remake of. Think about it. Avatar is unique because not only do we have an incredible 2D animated series to already adapt, but we also already have a terrible live-action remake that botched everything good about the original. So for the team at Netflix who got tasked with remaking Avatar, they essentially have the blueprint for everything they should and everything they should not do. Despite having over a decade to learn from M Night Shyamalan's mistakes, Netflix took Avatar, blended it up into slop, and then us piggies ate it up! We ate the slop! And now we want more! What we have is essentially a creatively bankrupt shell of the original, with none of the charm or personality that made it stand out in the first place. At the bare minimum, I expected them to at least drop the ball in different ways than M Night Shyamalan did, but somehow they managed to make a lot of the same mistakes 14 years later. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so the pilot episode of the original series is pretty iconic for good reason. It starts off with introducing us to Katara and Sokka, a brother and sister who are arguing on a paddle boat. This argument, despite being brief, manages to tell us so much crucial information about the characters and the world. You see, Sokka wants to play it safe, meanwhile Katara dreams of being a great bender one day. You also get to learn that the world is at war.
Ever since Mom died, I've been doing all the work around camp while you've been off playing soldier!
Katara?
Then, when Katara accidentally destroys an iceberg with her waterbending, we see the main character Aang is trapped in ice. Katara's immediate reaction is to help someone she doesn't know, despite it being potentially dangerous. And Sokka's immediate reaction is to demand that she stays safe and doesn't even bother helping him.
He's alive! We have to help!
Katara, get back here! We don't know what that thing is!
But in the Netflix remake, Katara and Sokka don't even realize that anyone's in the iceberg at all. They just see their boat a few feet away, and Katara tries to waterbend it back to them. And that just so happens to open up the iceberg. We never see their reaction to a stranger trapped in ice. Katara doesn't even actively choose to put herself in danger to help someone. And Sokka never demands she stays back to stay safe. Everything just kind of happens by accident. They don't even see anyone's trapped in ice until Aang is already free.
Where did he come from?
I don't know.
Why would you remove the small details that make the characters so much more fleshed out? Even M Night Shyamalan's remake did this right. How did you mess it up?
Just back away, really slow.
Katara, do not hit that spear!
One of the mistakes M. Night made that has been mocked religiously was skipping over the penguin sledding scene. In the original, Katara wakes up Aang, and it's clear to everyone that the responsible thing to do would be immediately going back to safety and treat Aang for hypothermia or something. But instead of showing concern, Aang does this.
Will you go penguin sledding with me? Sure.
Aang's very first decision in the entire show is to shirk responsibilities to do something childish and fun. Even though it's delivered in a very subtle way, this is literally the defining trait of the character. His arc for the rest of the show is to accept his responsibilities as an adult and to mature as a person. So for M. Night to skip the penguin sledding scene, he missed out on a perfect opportunity to show this in a clear and comedic way. Despite the fact that people have been criticizing this decision for the last 14 years, the Netflix reboot makes the same dumb decision. Aang just flops out of the iceberg, and then there's a hard cut back to the village.
He looks dead. What's that mark on his head?
So we're just completely missing out on the first interaction that the main trio ever have. Why would you do that? I'd also like to point out that I'm very in favor of making changes to the source material when you're remaking something, but the changes need to be justifiable. If you didn't want to have the penguin sledding scene, but you wanted to convey the same information in a different way, you couldn't really have Aang get distracted by anything, really. It doesn't need to be penguins. But the remake chose to remove the events that convey necessary information and then didn't replace it with a different thing to convey the same necessary information. Now, most likely you haven't seen the Netflix remake. You saw the trailer, knew it was gonna be bad, and you didn't even bother watching it. But what you don't know is that this opening scene takes place 25 minutes into the episode. If the first scene of the original is 25 minutes into the remake, then what could the first 25 minutes possibly even be? Well, let me tell you. In the original series, one of the things that makes Aang such an interesting character is that there's so much mystery to him. He's the last of his kind, but he doesn't really seem to be aware of it. He's the Avatar, but he doesn't really have a full understanding of his responsibilities yet. And he got frozen in an iceberg for 100 years, and we don't really know how or why yet. The answer to all of these mysteries gets slowly revealed over the course of many episodes. The mysteries really reel you in, and as you get more and more information about him, you're discovering the information with the characters and feeling the emotional impact of it with them. So when Team Avatar discover the Air Temple and we see all the dead airbenders, Aang of course reacts with grief and anger.
Gyatso.
Come on, Aang. Everything will be alright. Let's get out of here.
Later on, when we get Aang's backstory of when he got frozen in ice, we discover that he's actually unable to accept the duties of being an avatar. Overwhelmed by the sudden influx of responsibility, he runs away and freezes himself to save him and his pet. Then he blames himself for the eradication of his people because he feels like if he was there, he could have prevented it from happening.
You don't know what would have. The world needed me and I wasn't there to help. Aang, the fisherman was right. I did turn my back on the world.
If you had stayed, you would have been killed along with all the other airbenders.
You don't know that.
Aang's just a very well-written character, and the order in which the information's delivered to the audience is crucial for us to be emotionally invested. But in the Netflix remake, the first 25 minutes of the show is Aang's backstory. So the very first thing we see are the answers to the questions that we haven't even asked yet.
He spreads my cheeks and he makes me scream. He's my number one daddy, gonna make him cream inside of me. Just keep riding me.
This is such a terrible way to communicate the information because it just completely removes the mystery. We're no longer discovering information about the world through the lens of the characters. Now we just have the information and then we're just waiting to see the characters get the information. We aren't discovering any of this information with the characters in real time, so we aren't having the same level of emotional impact as before. And because of this, when we eventually get to the ruins of the Air Temple, it's just completely fucking rushed.
Know this, but you're not just anyone, Aang.
I guess the writers decided that we already knew what happened, so therefore we shouldn't spend too much time here. But there was so much more to seeing the Air Temple than just seeing that the airbenders are dead. We get to see Aang's reaction to it, his anger, his shame, his regret, his loss. What's the point of making the audience feel less of a mystery? Another important detail that's lost is that the cave scene with Aang and Katara is not in the remake. So because they removed that, we completely miss seeing Aang talk about how much he regrets his own actions in the past, and then we don't even hear his perspective on this kind of thing. Without this scene, it just makes Aang feel like a much more flat character.
Thank you for the slope, Netflix!
Thank you for the slump! Another thing I want to point out is the fact that the original series had some of the greatest animation ever to put to television. I'm not gonna say that translating this to live action can't be done. But what I will say is that it's been attempted twice now and failed both times. A lot of the CGI for the bending looks great, the big fish monster at the end looks great, but all the other visuals can be really hit or miss. Aang's arrow tattoos look like shit, a lot of the action looks like shit. Also, Momo in particular looks like actual nightmare fuel. Oh my god. He's an actual nightmare creature. Ah! Ah, look at him. He looks like a gremlin. They should have cast my guinea pig I named after Momo instead. That was a big missed opportunity, Netflix. I don't understand why people who made this show view live action and 3D animation as an upgrade, because honestly, this just looks worse. The CGI environments don't look convincing at all. It's very obvious that these actors aren't in Antarctica, they're just on a set, and their performance don't really sell the environment either. In John Carpenter's The Thing, the film took place in Antarctica, but they weren't actually there to film it. To compensate for this, they chilled the set to 54 degrees, that way the actors actually acted like they were cold, because they were. This made the environment a lot more convincing. In the Netflix remake, nobody's acting like they're cold at all. I can't imagine that computer generating this environment was cheaper than it would have been to just make it cold. Something else that's completely lost is the humor. The original series did have drama, but it also had a fair share of comedy to balance it out, and act as a vessel to understand the characters more. The Netflix remake seemingly is devoid of actual humor. It seems like they kinda try, but it just completely falls flat. When Zuko's ship invades the Water Nation to capture Aang, there's a lot of comedy in the scene to balance out the tension.
I've spent years preparing for this encounter. Training, meditating. You're just a child.
Well, you're just a teenager.
But the Netflix remake just makes it dull and boring.
Can't be.
You really feel how the lack of comedy impacts all the characters, especially Iroh and Sokka. In the original series, Iroh was an old and wise character from the Fire Nation. Despite being a bad guy, he never really acts like one. He doesn't believe the Fire Nation's cause is just, and he's just developed a relaxed demeanor as a way to criticize it.
We've been down this road before, Prince Zuko. I don't want you to get too excited over nothing. Please sit. Why don't you enjoy a cup of calming jasmine tea?
I don't need any calming tea!
He's always asking Zuko to put himself and the people he cares about above this stupid generational war. But in the Netflix remake, he isn't funny at all. He's just a chill old man, and that's it.
Prince Zuko, I don't think your father would want you.
My father has banished me until I find the Avatar.
All I'm saying is, it's hard to see you get your hopes up every time you see a sign.
The actor's clearly trying, but the script just gives him nothing to work with.
He's had a century to master the 4 elements. You will teach me the advanced set!
Very well. But first, I must finish my roast duck.
Some people say it is within our nature to expand and consume, like fire itself.
Really, I'm just bored as hell.
And then that brings us to Sokka, the most butchered character in the entire show.
Look how they mess with my boy.
In the original series, Sokka wasn't just a comic relief side character. He was a caring person who saw how war can devastate a family. And now he's a control freak so that he can keep everyone in his family safe.
The foreigner is banished from our village.
Sokka, you're making a mistake.
No, I'm keeping my promise to Dad. I'm protecting you from threats like him.
His good intentions combined with his lack of experience make him one of the funniest characters in the whole show.
Hurry up, Sokka!
Just a guy with a boomerang. I didn't ask for all this flying and magic.
The Netflix remake just didn't understand him at all. They did my boy so dirty.
Katara, Are you gonna talk all day, or are you coming with me?
Now, let's go save that weird kid.
The actor's trying, but Jesus Christ, he sucks. His comedic timing is awful. He can't really change his voice the way the original voice actor did to differentiate between like a comedic scene and a serious one. And worst of all of the physical comedy is completely gone. This is a very difficult thing to translate from animation to live action. Jim Carrey could do it, but this guy absolutely can't. Why did you cast him? He can't fucking act. There was also this viral article about how the showrunners wanted to tone down his sexism, saying it was iffy. I'm sorry, but that was kind of the fucking point. Sokka is a control freak because he saw his mom get killed in the war, and now he wants the women he's sworn to protect to stay safe and be in safe environments. The character arc he goes on is to mature out of that phase and put faith into other people. The original series was actively anti-sexist. Sokka's sexism was constantly shown as a bad thing.
Stop bugging her, Airhead. You need to give girls space when they do their sewing.
What does me being a girl have to do with sewing?
Simple. Girls are better at fixing pants than guys, and guys are better at hunting and fighting and stuff like that. It's just the natural order of things.
He even learns that it's a bad thing. How does someone say this unironically out of their retard mouth without admitting that they didn't even watch the original show? With the Netflix remake being completely devoid of humor, it honestly feels like it was less influenced by Avatar: The Last Airbender and more influenced by something like, I don't know, Game of Thrones? That wasn't a joke, by the way. The showrunner actually stated that he wanted this series to appeal to Game of Thrones fans. He then went on to say that the original series was too goofy to properly convey the mature themes, so they had to make this one more mature. Listen, I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan, and I think this is a completely brain-dead thing to say. First of all, Game of Thrones fans don't even like Game of Thrones. Second of all, The Last Airbender and Game of Thrones are two completely different shows and shouldn't really be discussed in the same sentence like this.
All ages can appreciate it, but it is family friendly. Game of Thrones has titties and blood and shit out the wazoo.
And thirdly, the original series was very mature. Yes, there was levity to balance out the drama, but it was still able to tell a mature story about accepting adulthood and loss and the impact of war that it has on teenagers. The fact that there is also a tee-hee funny cabbage man doesn't change that. What is it with these live action remakes and their obsession with forcing kid shows to be for adults? And why is their version of being for adults just to make it boring?
Hey there, fellow millennials! It's Mr. Humpkins! Remember Mr. Humpkins from your favorite childhood TV show? Well, now he's gay and smokes weed and kills people!
Now, I can end this video right here. I've already explained why this remake is useless and terrible and misses the point of the original. I could just stop talking right now, and this video would feel complete. You would understand. I can understand. But would you believe me when I tell you that I haven't even finished the first episode yet? Katara in the original was defined by the way her mother died. Since her mother was killed by the Fire Nation, she hates the Fire Nation and now has this inner desire to be the mother figure to other people that she does not have. The problem is that she's an immature teenager and that isn't always good at delivering helpful information, which leads her to morally grandstand in a way that can bother people.
You are the most sexist, immature, nut-brained
But the thing is, she does deeply care about the people she does this to, and all this does come from a good place. So the original has all these scenes of Katara being somber and emotionally supportive.
I know it's meant to be this way. The world needs you now. You give people hope.
Because we get to see both aspects of her personality, she really does come off as a layered character, who is well-intentioned but deeply flawed. Katara in the Netflix remake sure does morally grandstand people, but the problem is that Netflix removed most of the scenes where Katara is emotionally supportive of the people she cares about. So the character isn't layered at all, and she just comes off as a whiny asshole most of the time.
We have to do something. Sokka, we have to help him. Sokka!
Okay, listen up.
Two of the most important moments for Katara's character arc are completely removed from this remake. The cave scene with her and Aang, and all the scenes where Aang and Katara learn waterbending together are removed for seemingly no reason. In the original series, Katara and Aang spent a lot of time waterbending. Katara isn't really good enough at waterbending yet, so her and Aang are kind of learning how to do it together. These scenes are really important because they do the heavy lifting in order to make you believe that these two characters are friends and that they both want to go on this journey across the world together for a reason. Why would Netflix decide to cut these scenes out? Also, this probably goes without saying, but the actress who plays Katara in the remake just sucks.
Aang is not our enemy. Don't you see? Aang's brought us something we haven't had in a long time.
Yes, but remember what Mom told us too. She said that we have to protect those who can protect themselves. He's lost everything he knows.
Another character I should probably talk about now is Prince Zuko. Now, it's no secret that in the original, Prince Zuko is the star of the show. He may not be in the main team, but he is hands down the best character. He starts off as this emotionally conflicted teenager and ends the show with the greatest redemption arc ever to be put to screen. Zuko in the Netflix remake is kind of mid. His character doesn't necessarily do anything like offensive to the original, but the actor just can't perform the role well. His voice doesn't really capture Zuko to me, and the face paint they give him just looks like shit.
It's good to know this trip was a complete waste of time for everyone.
Zhao failed his officer training program.
Did I ask for your opinion?
Thank you for the slop, Netflix! Yummy, yummy! More slop, please!
Another characters that the Netflix remake completely ruins are Fire Lord Ozai and Princess Azula. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rich, Ozai and Azula are barely in season 1 of the original series. Netflix couldn't possibly ruin those characters, right? Well, guess what? They did! First of all, Ozai in the original series is less of a character and more of a force of nature. He's kind of the only one-dimensional character in the show. He's the leader of the Fire Nation and just essentially pure evil. His character never is really the focus, more so how his actions have an impact on the rest of the characters. He's the driving force of the war, and the original series understands to use him very sparingly. For the first 2 seasons, he really only appears in flashbacks for a few scenes. Every time he's on screen, his face isn't shown until season 3. He's always just off camera or covered in flames. He has this loud and powerful, deep voice. He's the strongest firebender in the world, and whenever he's on screen, every single character is terrified of him.
You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
Well, guess what? In the Netflix remake, this guy sucks! His face is just always shown to us. No flames or shadows to cover him up with. His voice isn't intimidating.
You will fight for your honor.
My plans, my strategy, my military, that's what you have insulted. Forgive me.
And they just show him way too much. For the original series to obscure his details, it makes us much more terrified of him. Anything we come up with in our head is going to be scarier than what they could possibly show us. And the mystery makes him much more interesting. But here, there's no mystery. He's just a guy. You went to high school with this guy. Why does this show put extra effort into making the characters less mysterious?
But who is that? This?
Well.
Azula should literally be the easiest character not to screw up because she isn't even really in it. The original series cleverly introduced some of the best characters in Season 2. Doing this gives us a lot of time to get attached to the smaller cast of Season 1, and by introducing more important characters later on, it makes the world of Avatar feel like it's expanding, and that there's so much more happening in the world that we just aren't seeing. In Season 1, Azula only has a blink and you'll miss it cameo, and then her introduction scene is literally the final scene of the season. It's a way to give a cliffhanger for a reoccurring villain for the rest of the series. Fucking M Night Shyamalan handled her character better than Netflix did.
What a twist!
Having her character at all in this season is pointless because Zuko's already has an adversary in Admiral Zhao. Giving the hero's villain 2 villains to overcome just makes the story needlessly messy. Also, the actress who plays Azula just doesn't perform the wickedness needed to adapt this character. Much of her line delivery is just giga cringe.
Have you met the Dai Li? They're earthbenders, but they have a killer instinct that's so firebender.
It has come to my attention you are involved in a matter vital to the safety of our empire. Can
you shut the fuck up?
Speaking of Zhao, despite being a side character, he's honestly the best character in the entire remake. The actor who plays Zhao is honestly the best performance in this entire thing.
But of course, I fully understand the sensitive nature of this information.
Speaking of which, I think episode 3 we get 2 actual good performances from Danny Pudi, who plays the Mechanist, and Sebastian Manuso, who plays Jet. I did not pronounce that right. Yeah, these actors actually understand the characters that they're playing, and they're really good at embodying them. I wanted to point out some good things when they happen. There are a couple of things in this episode I want to mention. First, this argument scene between the main 3 is absolutely unbearable. How is it possible that the worst 3 actors in the entire show got the roles as the main trio?
Besides, I saw Sai talking to the firebender. He's the traitor.
You don't know what you saw. He's headed to the palace right now. He could be reporting everything.
You're wrong.
Also, this fight scene feels like they were actually trying to capture that fun spirit of the original. I understand that everyone in this scene is trying to make this look good, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the original scene at all. Now we get into episode 4. Here we have 3 main storylines happening at once. Aang is completing Bumi's challenges, Sokka and Katara are trying to break Aang out of capture, and Iroh is trying to escape capture. In the original series, the Bumi tests and the secret tunnels were 2 different adventures happening in different episodes. But in this episode, these events are presented as if they're happening simultaneously. So Aang is doing the tests with Bumi, meanwhile Sokka and Katara are going through the secret tunnels together. This change by itself isn't necessarily an issue, but this scene together combined with the penguin sledding scene and a few others add together to make a much larger problem. In the original series, many of these adventures were used as a medium for the characters to grow together as people. Showing the characters bond over silly little adventures is what makes us believe their friendship. And that believable friendship is necessary for us to believe that they would actually want to travel the world together. It seems like the Netflix remake is obsessed with separating the team as much as possible. They save Aang from the iceberg, they teleport back to the village. They get to Kyoshi Island, Aang hangs out with a crowd of girls, Katara sulks in a corner, and then Sokka hangs out with Suki. They go to Amashu, and then Aang hangs out with some kid, Sokka hangs out with Sai, and Katara goes to hang out with Jet. And now they're in Amashu again, but they're on separate adventures again. But Rich, Team Avatar split up a bunch of times in the original too. Yeah, but what's important is that they spent more time together than they did separated. They had these little side adventures throughout the series where they bonded together, and then the showrunners decided to break the formula upon entering villages to meet other people. They did necessary character building first, and then that justified separating the characters at certain points of the show. The Netflix remake just skips over the scenes of them bonding. How are we supposed to believe that these people are such best of friends with each other if we never actually see it? The Netflix remake is completely reliant on the audience having already seen the original in order to believe what is happening. If someone has never seen the original watched this, they'd probably just be really confused.
That doesn't make sense.
One thing I'd like to point out about this episode that is amazing is Boomy. The actor who plays him is honestly great at capturing the character. He has all the charm and the wit that the original character did, and his physical performance is super expressive and cartoony.
How about you? I bet you like meat.
The world is on fire. People are dying, and you got to sleep through it all.
Just look at how he kicks the boulder here. I wish all the actors were this good. It's honestly so weird seeing that this show has so many terrible actors and then just like great ones sprinkled out. It honestly makes the bad actors just seem worse.
He's headed to the palace right now. He could be...
But they couldn't just let a good thing exist in the remake. No, they had to ruin it somehow. In the original episode, we don't know who the king is, so there's an interesting mystery about him. Then at the end, discovering that the king is actually Aang's long-lost friend Boomy is a welcoming surprise.
You're a mad genius.
Oh, Aang, it's good to see you.
But in the remake, they just had to reveal the king's identity at the beginning of the episode.
Can't make me believe you've lost hope. Not you, Boomy.
Alright, fine. I get it. You don't want to do anything mysterious. You don't want to do anything fun. Fine. I don't even care anymore. Another thing I'd like to point out is the music. The music in the original series absolutely has the sauce. It was heavily influenced by the music of Eastern Asia. It always just added so much to the scenes it was in. And even if I didn't show you the scene that it's from, I bet you I can play some of the music and you would just instantly remember a scene. The subtle music and even the loud bombastic music absolutely slaps hard. It is just dripping in sauce. It's iconic. The remake just kind of replaces all of this memorable music with basic, average stock music. Just listen to how different these two scenes are just based on the music alone.
The village!
This is absolutely sauceless.
Where's the sauce? Where's the sauce?
Episode 5 starts off with Team Avatar actually bantering. It's about time. It only took you over halfway through the season, but we finally got here. Unfortunately, none of these actors have any chemistry together, so this interaction is hella cringe.
So, ice discs? That's new?
It's something I saw the Earthbenders do. Thought I'd try a waterbender version.
Your bending has gotten really sharp.
We also have this scene with Azula training, which is actually a really interesting and creative choice that the Netflix remake did. So you see, Azula gets mad and starts hitting her teacher, but in the original series, she was actually... I guess we had too much of a good thing though, because as soon as the adventure starts, Team Avatar once again all separate for the rest of the episode.
First thing we better do is split up and search the school for clues.
What's the point of having Team Avatar if they never actually act like a team? Towards the end of the episode, Aang is in the spirit world and he's having a conversation with monk Gyatso. In this conversation, Gyatso gives him some wisdom about how it wasn't Aang's fault that the war started and that the Airbenders got wiped out.
You couldn't have stopped the Fire Nation. You couldn't have prevented the war. You would have just died, along with everyone else. It's not your fault.
They're trying to force this emotionally resonant moment, but once again, it just doesn't work. In the original, we have the episode with the storm where Aang tells Katara all about how he was given the responsibilities of being an avatar, and then he couldn't handle them, so he ran away. Aang feels like if he had stayed, he could have prevented the world from falling apart, so he blames himself for everything that happened. But in the Netflix remake, Aang doesn't run away because he can't handle the responsibilities. He just goes for a brief fly with Appa to clear his head. If this Aang never made the choice to run away, why would he blame himself for anything that happened? This remake never shows him regretting any of his decisions. This is yet again a scene that is totally reliant on the audience having already seen the original series. If someone watches the Netflix remake without seeing the original, it just wouldn't make any sense.
You idiot!
You can't just show us the last scene of a character arc. It has to be earned. It'd be like if I gave you some crust and told you it was a sandwich. It'd be like if I told you the second half of an analogy and just expected you to understand the entire thing. It'd be like if I and told you it was an entire pizza. My guinea pigs that I named after Avatar characters is a more faithful adaptation than this. This is Appa, Momo, Aang, Toph, and of course, Fire Lord Ozai.
You will learn respect.
Episode 6 once again shows us an adventure that was supposed to be the entire team, but is now just Aang for some reason. I have absolutely no idea why this remake is so obsessed with never showing the main trio being friends, but whatever, I guess it's just par for the course at this point. In this episode, we see the flashback showing Zuko's backstory about why he had to leave the Fire Nation. These flashbacks certainly aren't the worst thing about this remake, but there are still key details that are completely missed from the original that really take away from how fleshed out these characters were. Firstly, when we see Zuko's display of disrespect, he's taking part in his first war meeting. The generals discuss sacrificing their own men so that the greater Fire Nation can gain leverage in the war, to which he reacts like this.
They'll be used as a distraction while we mount an attack from the rear.
You can't sacrifice an entire division like that. Those soldiers love and defend our nation. How can you betray them?
What's important to note here is that Zuko is intentionally being disrespectful. He interrupts the generals talking to yell at them, insisting on the importance of everyone's life in the Fire Nation. He is clearly disgusted by their attitudes and values. But in the remake, Zuko doesn't interrupt their plan at all. He just waits for them to finish talking, and then he respectfully disagrees with their idea.
It's a terrible plan. I said, it's a terrible plan.
All of the instinctive disgust in Zuko's voice in the original is just completely lost here. Another thing I wanted to point out about the flashbacks is that in the original, they weren't just shown to us for no reason. Zuko's crew got fed up with the level of disrespect they were getting from him, and then Iroh chooses to tell them about why Zuko's in the predicament that he's in order for them to feel more empathy towards Zuko. Iroh is going out of his way to get their men and Zuko to have a better relationship. It really shows just how much Iroh cares about everyone around him, regardless of what side of the war that they're on. This is also an incredible character moment for Iroh because we get to hear his opinion about all the events too. But in the remake, these flashbacks are initially showed to us for no reason. There's no inciting incident that causes Iroh to explain the events to the team. We never get to hear Iroh's perspective on anything. It's just one giant exposition dump. Then at the end of the episode, we finally get a scene with the implication that Iroh has told the entire team about the events. I appreciate that they tried to do this at the end, but this should have been shown throughout the entire episode, not just the very last second. Why even remake Avatar if you're just gonna take away all the small details that make the characters interesting? Doesn't matter though, because this guy who plays Zhao is amazing.
The Avatar has escaped! There, on the wall! Don't let them get to the...
In episode 7, we see Team Avatar arrive at the Northern Water Tribe, where, say it with me now, they once again split up and go on separate adventures together. Yay, fun. The fact that everyone does their own thing is extra hilarious because this episode contains additional lines of dialogue where Aang talks about how crucial his friends were on his journey.
My friends mean everything to me. I can't do this without them. It's how I made it this far, and with their help is how I'm gonna make it through this battle. We're Team Avatar.
I'm sorry, Aang, but name one single time in this entire series where your friends helped you with literally anything. Go on, do it.
There is no Team Avatar.
See, this guy's actually been watching the show. Also, this episode has another moment where they seemingly comment on another issue with the show.
It would have been wise to have focused on your training during your journey.
See, Paku's actually cooking here. Why haven't you been training waterbending this entire time? Why would Netflix decide to cut these scenes out? It doesn't make any sense. I know it seems like Aang is the king of bad dialogue in this episode, but luckily we have Sokka, who really comes in to steal the show.
You are just a girl.
Did you think I wasn't a girl?
No. I just figured with you being a princess and all.
That I was
Yeah, not ordinary. Because that wouldn't be good. And I think I should stop saying words now.
Stop! Just stop! No! Something I'd like to point out about Katara's solo adventure here is that in the original series, the Northern Water Tribe is very sexist and only allows women to be healers and not actually fight on the front line.
In our tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn waterbending.
And in the Netflix remake, they decided to keep the plot point in. Okay, so if Sokka's sexism was iffy and needed to be removed, why was the Northern Water Tribe's sexism not iffy and okay to stay in? How is one individual story of overcoming their own sexism too offensive to be in the remake, but an entire society built around sexism is not offensive? Is sexism only acceptable if the entire culture is okay with it? Like, if Sokka was still sexist in the remake, but everyone else in the Southern Water Tribe was, is that okay? Is it too much to ask that you actually stay consistent with the changes that you've made? It's almost like Netflix took the original Avatar, blended it into slop, and fed it to us oh wait, I already made that joke. I'm not writing another one. Okay, before we close this out and tear into the final episode, story time. So I've never really been into conventions like Comic-Con or anything like that, but several months ago, my girlfriend invited me to go to one. Fan Expo Philadelphia. My girlfriend Emily absolutely loves conventions. You don't know her. She goes to another school. Anyways, I figured I'd just go have a fun weekend with her and her friends, make her happy, happy wife, happy life, blah, 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 blah. What's important to note is I didn't look up a single thing about the convention before I went. Like I said, these aren't really my thing, so I really didn't care what was going on there. I just figured I would go and have a good time. Day one, Emily wanted to see a celebrity meet and greet section where she told me that you could pay money to meet a celebrity and get a photo with them. People were there like Danny Trejo, Hayden Christensen, and Adam Savage was there too. So when I went to the convention, I was about halfway through making this very video. I want you to imagine, I turned the corner and to my shock, standing right there are Dallas Liu, Ian Owsley, Elizabeth Yu, and Yvonne Chapman, aka the actors who played Netflix Zuko, Sokka, Azula, and Kyoshi. By complete accident, the stars had perfectly aligned to have the people whose work I had been tearing apart standing 10 feet away from me. It was just too perfect. It felt like a dream. So, in case you're wondering, yes, I did pay to meet one of them. Yup, that's me, your boy, posing next to Ian Owsley, aka Netflix Sokka. Just look at that shit-eating grin on my face. I was kind of hoping he was an asshole so that I can kind of make this some sort of a personal grudge. Like, I don't know, I figured it would make the video spicier or something. But no, he was just a normal, nice, 22-year-old guy. It kind of made me feel bad about cyberbullying him that entire time.
Why did you cast him? He can't fucking act.
Best $50 I ever spent. Okay, so the season finale begins with Team Avatar actually acting like a team. It's about fucking time. Gonna be honest, this is easily the best episode in the entire remake. There are some good action scenes that are clearly inspired by the Battle of Blackwater Bay and Game of Thrones. If they wanted to take inspiration from Game of Thrones, this is by far the best way that they did it. The episode is very Zhao focused, which is good because he's easily the best character in the entire remake, but they just had to ruin something. So in the original, Zhao's death scene is incredible. Zhao pokes the holy fish with a spooky stick so the moon dies. Trust me, that sentence makes sense. And then him and Zuko get into a little fight.
You tried to have me killed!
Yes, I did.
Then the moon spirit picks up Zhao, and this happens.
Take my hand!
Despite Zhao attempting to kill Zuko and kidnap the Avatar himself, Zuko sees that he's about to be taken by the moon spirit and attempts to save him. Zhao getting taken out like this would only serve to benefit Zuko, but he chooses to put that aside to put his life in danger in order to save someone. It is a purely selfless act, and it's a crucial moment for Zuko's character development. But no, in this remake, they just had to completely miss the fucking point. So they decide to, instead of the moon spirit, Iroh kill Zhao for some reason. Iroh. By having Zhao killed by the moon spirit in this way, it says a lot about him as a character. Because he tried and failed to kill the moon spirit then kills him. His actions were his own undoing. And having him reject Zuko's attempt to save him, it shows us that Zhao would rather die on his own terms than be saved by someone that he views as beneath him. But with the remake having Iroh kill Zhao, we don't learn anything deeper about Zhao or Zuko as people. It removes a moment where we learn so much about each character. Also, what does this moment say about Iroh? That he's a killing machine who's willing to take out anyone on a whim? This happens after season 1 of the original, but we do eventually learn of Iroh's backstory, that he's a failed general of the Fire Nation, and from that, he's learned to engage in violence only when it's extremely necessary. But now, he sees Zhao try to kill Zuko, and then just murders him without batting an eye. Zuko has been attacked a bunch of times this season, and Iroh's never murdered anyone then with no hesitation. Why change this now? Another brain-dead change that the remake made was to have a last-minute plot twist. So I guess they really are fans of M Night Shyamalan after all. Basically, Zuko has Zhao on the ground ready to kill him when Zhao says this.
Did you really think the Fire Lord was gonna take you back? Or was I just using you as motivation for your sister? Who do you think was my ally? Who convinced the Fire Lord to send me the Yuyan archers? Azula told me everything I needed to know.
Hang on. So this remake really wants us to believe that Zhao was incapable of accomplishing anything without the help of Azula? Azula?
See? There was a twist.
So first you include her in this season for no fucking reason at all, and now you're trying to insist that she's so necessary to the plot that Zhao couldn't do anything by himself before this? Zhao was able to accomplish all of this in the original without the help of Azula. We saw him play the power structure of the world by himself, and then he became an admiral. Why would a 40-year-old experienced war admiral need the help of a 14-year-old girl who's never even left her daddy's palace? The only indication that Zhao and Azula have even met is that they're sitting in the same row during a flashback. A flashback! Did they hang out or something? What does that say about Zhao?
Certified lover boy, certified pet.
Another issue with this reveal is that it is yet another moment of the remake that only makes sense to you if you've already watched the original series. In the original, season 2 and 3 establishes Zuko and Azula's relationship as this toxic rivalry. But the remake never does anything to establish their relationship. So if you never saw the original, and then you see this new one, and you see Zhao reveal that he's working with Zuko's sister, it would make just as much sense for Zuko to be like, oh, you work with my sister? That's amazing. I sure do love my sister. So since Zuko doesn't try to save Zhao, Zuko started the series off by being an asshole and then ended it by being the same asshole. Nope. No character arc for this redemption story. Have you noticed that they did this to everyone else? Sokka and Aang didn't start the story with any real character flaws, so they never had anywhere to develop in the story as characters. Sokka doesn't get anything close to a character arc, and then Aang doesn't have one, but Netflix gaslighted us into thinking that he did? Guys, if Sokka wasn't sexist, you just know for a fact that Toph is gonna get the exact same treatment, right? Remember all those hilarious blind jokes from the original? Well, there isn't a chance that Netflix is gonna do that. You know that, right? They're gonna get an actress to play Toph, who will be legally blind, and then whenever they're criticized about anything, they'll just bring that up as if they've made some kind of social progress, as if that nulls them of any criticism at all. Katara is somehow even more of an asshole in the remake than the original, but they just forget to make her learn from it. So yeah, no character arc for her either. When I first wrote this script for this video, I forgot to even write anything about Katara. This video almost didn't include her because I almost completely forgot she was in it. Go ahead, watch the remake and try to argue with me that she has an impact on the story. Go ahead, do it. Well, at least they pronounced everyone's name right.
Say Avatar wrong.
All in all, it seems like this Netflix remake was just in way over its head. None of the characters got a satisfying arc. Many of them act completely out of character. All of the fun and whimsical nature of the original show is just gone. And now my wife left me to go have sex with our neighbor because I haven't stopped yelling about a cartoon that ended 20 years ago. I can honestly see why the original creators left the remake. I'm sure if they had more creative control over it, it would have ended up a lot better. This remake is so bad that I came back from my YouTube retirement just to yell at a microphone for an hour. Well, at least we could take comfort in the fact that no one watched it. It was a financial failure and got canceled after one season.
They would like to announce season 2 and 3.
Wait, no!
He spreads my cheeks and he makes me scream. He's my number one daddy, gonna make him cream inside of me. Just keep riding me. When I'm slapping him down, it's my favorite sound. He laid out a little more, what a beautiful tone, so softly. Just keep riding me.
Well, at least we can take... What is it, Ozai?